Hi gang, Rob here. It is the afternoon of 31 October 2015. Yeah, it's Halloween. But this isn't going to be a scary video. What I wanted to do is introduce an interview that you're going to watch in just a few moments with Mike Stewart. Mike is the founder, owner, the king of Bark River Knives in Escanaba, Michigan. I got to meet him while I was up visiting Derek Bone at Knives Ship Free. And Derek and Knives Ship Free are the biggest distributor of Bark River knives in the country. Part of the reason Derek moved from Oregon to Escanaba, I think, was to be closer to Bark River. And Mike, there's some other things cooking between the two of them you might get a hint of if you watch this Escanaba trip video series. But I wanted to just fill you guys in before you watch the interview with Mike on who this guy in front of the camera is. If you're familiar with marbles knives, blackjack knives, you're familiar with Mike Stewart's work. He founded Blackjack, and Blackjack became known as one of the foremost makers of handmade fixed blade knives in the world, certainly in America. Their sort of claim to fame is making patterns by Randall made knives, some very famous fighting knife patterns. And Mike will go through the story of his journey over 40 years in the knife business, from blackjack to marbles to founding Bark River back in 2001. And I just want to put this interview in perspective for you guys. There are very few men living today who know as much about making knives as Mike Stewart. Not only has he been doing it for 40 years, he's also been doing it better than just about everybody who's ever made a knife. And today, Bark River Knives cranks out 800 of the most premium semi-production or semi-custom, depending on how you look at it, fixed blade knives in the world. They're all convex ground. They use a variety of handle materials. His handles are the best there are. He's got a dedicated crew of skilled craftsmen making these knives. They are amazing. He also makes knives for other names we can't talk about because of his agreements with them. He knows everything there is about making a knife. He knows everybody who's made knives in the last half century, everywhere in the world. He's respected, he's loved, and he's just one of those characters of the knife world that are so worth getting to know. And I was so blessed to get to spend 4 or 5 hours with him. He invited me to come back up and learn how to make a knife and grind a convex edge and how to sharpen a convex edge as well as you possibly can. He's gonna put me on the grinding line and be my boss for a day or two, for free, of course, on my part. But that's a pretty good education. But anyway, I wanted you to know who this guy is before we start the interview, because he is amazing. So just get a cup of coffee, sit on the couch, and get YouTube up on the big screen, and enjoy the wisdom and the charm and the humor of Mike Stewart. And as I promised, we're sitting down with Mike Stewart, knife making royalty, legend Mike Stewart of Bark River Knives.
Just a regular guy.
And you put your pants on
the same way as everybody else.
Same way as everybody else.
Nothing special about me.
It was very gracious of Derek to offer to bring me over and visit with Mike, and well, we're going to take a look at the shop in a little bit. But just wanted to sit down and have you guys meet a really cool human being to talk to. So how's it going, Mike?
It's going very well, as usual. The only problem that we have on a regular basis is that there aren't enough hours in a day, week, or month. We can't make enough knives. That's our biggest problem.
That's just a horrible problem to have.
It is, especially if you're waiting for your knife.
So you guys watch, and you might have heard the name Bark River Knives, and you probably heard the name Mike Stewart. but you may have heard the name Mike Stewart mentioned in connection with marbles knives or blackjack knives.
Right.
And it's the same guy.
It's the same guy.
You've been doing this for a little bit.
Darn near 40 years.
And you were the founder of Blackjack Knives.
Originally, yes.
Yeah.
And I was the vice president of Marbles.
And probably you were responsible for most of what Marbles did during those years.
Well, Marbles had not made knives for 20 years. And they brought me in to rejuvenate their knife division, which we did with effortlessly. It was actually one of the easiest jobs I had in my life, was to go in there, have them pay me to do something that people were screaming to be done.
That's a pretty good gig.
It was a good gig. The first 2 years were great, the last 2 not so much.
Yeah.
But when I walked in there were literally boxes and boxes of blade blanks. Like 12 or 14,000 blade blanks.
Just waiting to be made into knives.
That they had oiled and stacked up.
Wow.
And you had all these, Marbles nuts going like, we got to have knives, And, well, we better start putting these together. So I hired a crew, trained them, and, we were instantly making knives. And, it did very well. When they decided that they wanted to go to China was when we had a little bit of a problem.
So we talked about that story a little while ago. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, well, they took in a partner, an investor, whatever, and he wanted to make the knives offshore. So I'm seeing my name associated with Chinese knives. That's a no-no. I don't do that. And then I also see 22 or 23 American jobs that we're going to lose. And I worked real hard at creating American jobs, not losing them.
So you put your foot down.
Yeah, I said, you can't do that with me here. So they said, well, you're fired.
And
I had no problem with it.
That was on a Friday, did you say?
No, they fired me on a Saturday.
On a Saturday.
They actually came out, personally fired me on a Saturday.
So on a Saturday, Marbles fired you.
Right.
And it was, maybe 4, 5, 6 months before you had Bark River Knives running then?
No, we had it up and running by Monday.
The following Monday?
Yeah, Monday 4:30. Yeah, we decided to put it in a dairy barn, because we had a dairy barn at the time.
Well, yeah.
So we knocked all the stalls down. And old John Stenberg was down the road a piece. He owned the concrete company. And I said, John, I need you to come pour a floor. Well, somehow he had already heard that. This is Monday.
He already knows you need concrete work.
He knew I needed concrete. I know. Bark River's a tiny town.
Maybe.
So, I don't know. So he says, I'll be over there in about 20 minutes. Comes over and he says, I have my boys in here in about an hour. He said, you just want a regular, how thick? I said, I don't know. I said, I don't know. I'm going to put grinders and stuff. He says, you need 4 or 5 inches, Mike. And I said, okay, you're the concrete guy. I don't know. So
wow.
they poured the floor that night. And then what was even funnier was that we had one 110 outlet in that barn, which was a wire buried from the cabin across the driveway, hooked up to the barn, so we had lights in the barn. Well, I had another friend who was an electrical contractor, and I called him up, and he says, yeah, I heard you need power. I said, what? He says, yeah, I heard already. So it had already spread from Bark River to Escanaba.
Oh, goodness.
So he came out, and he put in 200 amp service right off the pole.
Unbelievable.
And I said, well, how much is this going to cost me? He says, you don't have enough money. Don't worry about it. He says, I'll send you a bill. And I think it was about $3,500, which is very cheap for what he did.
Wow.
And I think I paid him like a year later.
Oh, my goodness. And similar story with some of your suppliers for materials.
Yeah, for materials. And we were, in a matter of weeks, we were actually shipping knives.
And had no money to get started.
Well, I had my good looks, but I ain't that good looking.
Oh, we got some help.
Yeah.
People, well, you know what that says? That says people like you and trust you.
I think there's a lot of people that do. The one thing that we owned when we went to Marbles was our distribution chain. Of course, I'd been in the business so long that we had a distribution chain. And that goes back to a business premise. Let's say that you're going to manufacture some widget, and you're making the best widget in the world. if you don't have a way to sell it, it doesn't matter that you made the best widget in the world.
Correct.
So we already had the distribution chain, because I brought that with me when I went to Marbles. So one at a time, those distributors called me and said, "What are you doing?" You know, and I said, "Well, I ain't making aluminum siding." You know, so the bottom line was that we have been literally back ordered from the day we opened.
Isn't that something?
And as the business grew, we stayed back ordered. Right now, our back orders
almost
are,
15 years ago, over 15 years ago.
Our back orders are usually in the range of between $1 million and $1.5 million back ordered at all times. We batch build. That means that I'll build between 300 and 1,000 of one model at a time. And maybe we'll do 2 of those in a week. So the distributors really have to buy them then, because they may not see that knife again for 8 months or 6 months or maybe even next year.
Wow.
Certain models, if it's a model that sells okay but not really gangbusters, we might only make that model once a year. So they have to buy it when we make it. So I announce my production schedule, the orders come in, and we're back ordered instantly. And then every week when I deliver some, we tell them what's going to be on the back end of that, what we were adding to the production schedule. So the bottom line is that we are always back ordered with more knives than we can make.
Forever since the company started.
Since the company started, yeah.
And now you're no longer in the dairy barn in Bark River. You're in Escanaba in a real factory.
In a real factory. We outgrew the barn in, I would say, summer of 2003, and it took us a couple months to find a place that was. Escanaba used to be a much more industrial town. A lot of the big companies left here. This was an economic depression long before the country decided we were in one. So there were all kinds of huge buildings that were empty, like 30,000, 40,000 square feet. But I needed something more like about 10,000. Well, we're on Highway 426 here. I had no reason in the world to ever drive down Highway 426. I did not know this building was here.
Goodness.
We were driving down the main road, and my wife says, and Leslie says, "Turn down there." And I said, "Why? We never go that way." She said, "Turn down there." Yeah, she had a hunch.
I said, "Indulge me."
Yeah, she said, "Indulge me." That's exactly what she said. So we drove down here 1 mile, and here's this building for rent. And there was a sign that said, "Call this number." So we called the number, and it was Ken Gartland, the Gartland family. But Ken was out of town. Ken has a mission in life, which is very laudable. He has sponsored a town in Honduras.
Wow.
And it turns out the guy that poured the concrete is in it with him.
Ah.
It's, you know, where they've actually taken this little village in Honduras, and they've turned it into a little industrial center. They put a water purification plant, put some little factories in there. And he was in Honduras. So his son Johnny calls me back, and he says, "Hey, I heard you want to rent that building." I said, "Yeah." And he says, "How much you want to pay?" I said, "Don't you know how much you want for the rent?" And he says, "No. What you willing to pay?" Well, we were paying, our mortgage payment out in Bark River was like about $1,700 a month. I said, "Well, we could pay $1,700 a month." And he says, "I like $1,700. That's what we were asking. $17 a month, $1,700 a month." I said, "What a coincidence." So he says, "Let me call my dad." So he calls back and he says, "Dad says you can have that place." He said, "When can you be there?" I said, "When can you give me the keys?" So I think it took us 2 days.
Wow.
To move it.
That's a lot of moving in 2 days.
Yeah. Well, we didn't have that much stuff back then.
And this, I've been here long enough today to know this is a family operation.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
So you have, how many Stewarts working here?
4. Leslie and I, and then Jim,
Uh-huh.
and Jackie, my daughter.
Gotcha.
And but it's a bigger family operation than that.
Really?
We consider ourselves a family, the entire company.
Gotcha.
I mean, I can tell you all the employees' names. I can tell you their wife's name. I can tell you their kid's name. I can tell you which kid just had his tonsils out and which kid needs money for the dentist. And we do things the way I feel our industry started in the 1800s, where the company could only be successful if everybody gave a damn about what the product looked like.
Yeah.
So by involving the working people, because I consider myself blue collar, I'm no exec. You know, I used to make knives with these hands. You know, I have a degree, but I mean, it's not. I never went out and got one of them highfalutin jobs because of it. I consider myself a tradesman. By involving them and making them feel like it's a family, because it is a family, and knowing that if they need $20 for gas, they can walk in here and they're going to get $20 for gas.
Right.
Or if they're good, well, I drank too much last weekend and I'm a little short, which, by the way, here in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, drinking is an Olympic sport.
I've heard that.
Yeah, it's true. It's all
and you
true.
guys even have Derek drinking.
We're working on it. We're working on it. He likes wine, though, red wine.
He does like wine.
He likes red wine.
And a little brandy now and then.
It's a rumor.
Uh-huh.
Not that we have brandy to spare. Just
No,
in
not
case,
at all. Not at all.
But
So-
I've heard that he likes a little bit of bourbon, too, I hear.
I saw a bottle of bourbon in his house. He didn't mention it, but
Yeah.
so for the guys who don't know, what kind of knives does Bark River make?
We primarily make sporting knives, or knives that can be used as sporting knives. We do make some that some people might call tactical. Our Bravo series, a lot of people consider that tactical because we designed it for the Marine Corps.
Right.
Not for the whole Marine Corps. We designed it for Force Recon. But it's not a fighting knife. They made it very clear to me that they give them bullets and guns. So they don't fight with knives. Because when they wanted the knife, it was a, this 4 1/4 inch blade knife. And I said, well, don't you want it longer? And the guy started laughing at me. He says, we don't actually use knives for fighting. So really what this is kind of like a real heavy-duty bushcraft knife.
Yeah.
Now, do we make a fighter version of it? Yes, now we do. Did they buy any? Not a one. They didn't. That's
So
the strike force.
That would be your consumer version of your military quote unquote.
Well, they're all. It
knife.
turns out that they're all consumer versions because the Bravo 1 turned out to be our #1 seller, and I don't think it was just because we designed it for Force Recon.
Right.
People don't understand it. There's only like 1,800 guys in Force Recon in the whole world, and I'm not sure who has a Bravo and who doesn't.
And that's
because
like
we don't
2
sell
or 3
directly.
weeks of production. So
Well, we don't sell to the government.
Right.
They have to buy them from our distributors.
Gotcha.
I want very little to do with selling anything to the government
I
because I
understand.
actually need to get paid. But and I don't make any I don't make any bones about that. But what the consumers have found is that because it actually is a heavy-duty bushcraft knife, even though it was designed for people in uniforms, it works really good for people who aren't in uniforms.
Amazing, isn't it?
Because they can actually abuse the knife. And I put it like this: if we can make a knife that Marines can't break easily,
Neither can you.
you guys probably can't break them either.
So, now you've got one sitting in front of you. Is that the Featherlight Hunter?
Yeah, this is the featherweight, the featherweight Fox River.
Featherweight Fox River.
Yeah, this is one of our newest models, and I love the thing because our Fox River, by the way, the full-size Fox River is our #4 in popularity. The Bravo is #1. The Gunny, the smaller Bravo, is #2. The Aurora bushcraft knife is #3, but the Fox River is #4. Well, I always wanted to make one that weighed nothing,
Right.
would cut like crazy, and you could have it with you all the time. So this was about as small as I wanted to make it, and this is about half the size of a Fox River.
So that's what, about a 3-inch blade?
About a 3-inch blade, but it's very thin. It cuts like crazy.
What material?
This is Elmax.
Tell
Okay.
me what handle we use.
Elmax. If you're going to make a stainless one, S35VN, Elmax, and CPM 154 that's the top of the line.
Okay.
From everything we've tried, there may be something better, but if there is, I don't know it. For a knife that you can actually abuse a little bit.
Right. And you
The
can
twen-
make them thinner out of
Yeah, the
those
20
things.
CV actually holds an edge longer,
Uh-huh.
but it does not have the lateral strength that these have, the lateral toughness. That's why we use it, the 20 CV holds an edge forever. We use it in the smaller knives. When you get into a knife that you might have to horse a little bit, that's not the right steel.
Gotcha.
Elmax is one of those magic steels. It's a powdered metal steel.
Right.
And other people used it before we did. They did not have a lot of luck with it.
No, some people had some real bad luck with it.
It's because they didn't understand the parameters of its short window.
Yes.
It actually has a short window of operation, of ideal operation. I was reluctant to use it until we solved that. And there's one guy I got to credit, I'm going to say his name. That's Tracy Mickley.
Okay.
Yeah, I wonder who thought
With
that up.
Mid-American Knife Supply. Tracy also is a custom knife maker.
Yeah.
And a dear friend. But he gave me the secret in a conversation we had. Because I know that he was literally shaving micarta with one that he made.
Goodness.
And he was shaving soft steel,
Yep.
unheat-treated steel with it.
Oh my.
And we know that the other companies had edge rollover problems or chipping. Okay? Too soft, too hard. He said, Mike, 60-61 is where you want to be with that, and it'll just surprise the heck out of
So
you.
that's a Rockwell C scale hardness, 60 to 61.
Below 60, it folds up like a cheap suit. Over 61, it chips and cracks. But if you hit that heat treat right on, which we do, we have no problem hitting heat treat right on, they cut like crazy, and they're not a bit fragile. And he was right. And once I did that, then I was confident in calling Bowler and saying, send me 1,000 pounds of that steel.
So how do your production folks like grinding Elmax?
It actually is not difficult to grind. But keep in mind that what might be easy for us to grind might be difficult for somebody else. We are used to aggressively grinding steels like 3V and 4V. A2 is easy to grind. But when you switch over, the abrasion resistance of Elmax is higher than the 3V.
Super high.
And all that means to us is that we stay on that ceramic belt a little bit longer at a rougher grit, a little bit longer. We can still make 200 of these in a day in the Elmax, in any of the knives in Elmax, because we've learned how to grind it. And it's really funny because our foreman, who anybody that knows us knows that his nickname is Skittles, will come in and he'll say, "Is this 3V?" And I'll say, "Yeah." And I'll say, "Okay." And he'll know what belts to pull. We have a whole room full of belts. And he'll know what belts to pull for the guys to use. Is this Elmax or is this S35VN? Is darn near as abrasion resistant as this stuff.
Now see, I didn't know that.
Oh yeah, I'm real pleased with S35VN. It's tough. It's actually tougher than Elmax. And the ideal operations of that one is 59.5 to 60.5.
I believe you because
And we can hit that.
when Chris Reeves started running S35, steel he kind of designed almost. He ran 58. He ran at 58 to 60, and the knives that were down in that 58 and 58.5 range had horrible edge retention.
Well, I'm still convinced that a lot of people are using it at 57, 59, which ideally you want 58 in there. But if you're batch doing them, you could end up with some of them at 57, 57.5. It doesn't do the steel justice. You might as well use 420.
Right. In
other words, you're paying $17, $18 a pound for the S35VN. This stuff's $20 a pound. My cost, and I buy 1,000 pounds at a time. Custom knife makers must pay even more than that. But if you aren't really aware of exactly what is the ideal operational range of a steel, you need to find that out before you spend money.
Absolutely.
I like the S35VN right there between like 59.5 and 60.5, and it's plenty tough. It holds an edge like crazy, but it's not wildly crazy to sharpen like 20 CV or M4,
Or even Elmax.
No, the Elmex is actually, at 60, 61, it's not that difficult to sharpen. If you are hand sharpening 20 CV or CPM M4 by hand, you probably you'll run out of all the cuss words you know, and you'll invent new ones.
Yeah, that's happened to me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You have to get more aggressive with it, like with diamond or something, to get the sides to meet.
Yes.
Then you go back to your strops to take the diamond marks off, because diamonds are terrible to sharpen with. So, I mean, a finished edge should never be the diamond edge. So, but just to get it sharp, you probably need to get that aggressive.
Yeah.
And you can't be afraid to be aggressive with some of these steels. None of the steels we use are brittle or delicate. We also have, and I've said this all along, and people are amazed when they ask me. We have an unconditional lifetime warranty.
Derek told me that. So
Yeah.
I can own one of your knives.
You can do anything you want with it.
I can be completely stupid.
We warranty against stupid. If you do something really silly with the knife and you chip it, we'll regrind it for free. If you manage to break it, which I don't think we've had 5 broken blades in 15 years. But that's because there's something else we do that nobody else does. But no matter what you do, if you screwed your knife up, we'd rather have us regrind your knife and send it back to you. But if we can't, we'll send you a new one. The other thing that, and we get some very interesting stories. They think that they need to give us a story. They really don't. It's unconditional.
They think they need to make up a lie to get you to fix their knife.
Right. We'll listen. They're very creative.
I bet you got a million of them.
I had one guy call up and he said, do you warranty the handle if my dog chewed it? Now the answer is yes, but I wasn't going to let him off the hook that easy. So I said, what kind of dog is it? So he said, it's a Doberman. I said, oh, we warranty for Dobermans. I said, we do not cover those little miniature collies. They are so high strung. We don't cover those. So he broke out laughing. Dogs chew handles. Do you know why?
Why?
Salt from your hands.
Isn't that something?
The handle tastes good to the dog.
We don't want to talk about other things dogs chew.
No, well, they'll chew anything,
right.
but if your dog chews the handle, we'll cover it. We'll replace the handle for you.
Wow.
But we feel as though that it's really important that you have enough confidence to use the knife and not worry about, let's say you're in a tough spot.
Mm-hmm.
We want you to cut your way out of the tough spot because you're more important than the knife.
Absolutely.
So we'll replace the knife. I can't replace you, And to me, replacing the knife and having you survive is way more important to me than what the cost of this knife is. So we always err on the side of the customer.
For lots of reasons, not the least of which is that I might want to buy more Bark River knives.
Sure. Well, there are other companies that pretty much have the same warranty.
Yeah.
The warranty I wanted to use, I couldn't use.
What was that?
Because Jerry Bussey's already using it. Write your own damn warranty.
That's pretty good.
It is. I loved it. But I couldn't steal it from him, so I had to. So we have one with. There is an exception to our warranty. I don't know if you know that or not.
I did not know that.
There is an exception to it.
Well, it changes things a lot. What is the exception?
If you lend the knife to a live badger, it voids the warranty.
What if the badger's dead?
No, you can skin a badger with it. You can kill a badger with it. But if you give the knife to a live badger to use, and he uses it, it voids the warranty.
Wow.
So, and that's the only real exception.
So basically, the warranty is not worth the paper it's printed on.
If you're going to give your knife to a badger, that's it.
Okay. So before we go out in the shop, I have a question about this knife.
Yep.
What's the handle material?
This one's black micarta because this one's mine.